Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about loops. They are used for repeating code. You can either repeat one line of code or you can repeat entire sections of code for a set amount or endlessly. There's two different types of loops. One of them is called a for loop, spelled like this, a for loop. This is for repeating lines of code for a set number of times. And then there's also a loop called the while loop, which repeats code until a true or false statement becomes false. So two different types of loops used for different things, and I'll go ahead and write a simple one, and then I'll show you some practical uses for each one. Alright, so let's go ahead and edit a program called loops. New program. So edit loops, new program. The usage of a for loop. Now, I'm going to make a program. You remember before in the example I showed a program that just moved forward 3 blocks? Well, I had to type in turtle.forward 3 times. So now let me show you an easier, more efficient way to write something like that. So let's go ahead and turn this turtle around the opposite direction, because we're going to make it move forward 10 times. So we're going to go ahead and edit loops. Now in order to make a for loop, you first say the word for, then you're creating a variable. I like to use a variable I. That's just a habit. For I, and then you have to set it equal to a starting value. So I'm just gonna, normally you want to set it equal to 1. That's a good starting point. Then you have to say comma, and you give it another number. So the second number is, it's gonna basically, this for loop, it's going to count through, it's going to start with I set equal to 1, and then it's going to repeat all this code that you put until it sees the word end. So basically, well, one more thing you need is do. So just go ahead and copy this down, and I'll explain what all the parts do. You need for, you need to set a variable equal to a number, comma, another number, then you say do. Go down to the next line, and all the code that you want to put, you can put as many lines as you want, and then that's the code that's going to be repeated. And then you say end at the end of all the code that you want repeated. Alright? So this variable, what's going to happen is it's going to go through this code. I is going to be set equal to 1 the first time it goes through this code. Then what's going to happen is it's going to jump back up to the top of the code, and I will now be set equal to 2. Then it's going to go back through all the code and do it again. Then it's going to set I equal to 3 and jump back up to the top and do it all again. It's going to do that until it reaches the number 10. So this second number is basically how many times this loop repeats. You don't have to start with 1, and you can change these numbers, but basically the difference in the numbers is how many times they're going to repeat the code. So let's go ahead and just so you can see it working, we're gonna print this text. Variable is now, and then we're gonna put a space in, and then we're gonna add on with our concatenation symbol to add to the string. We're gonna say add on the variable I to this string that it's gonna print out. So now what's going to happen is it's going to go through this print statement 10 times, because this loop is it's a 10 time loop, because from 1 to 10 it's 10 numbers. Now the I is going to change value every time it goes through the loop. It's going to start at 1 and the last time it goes through the code it's going to be 10. So every time it goes through this code, it's going to print this statement, variable is now, and it's going to print out the value of I. So what we're going to get, I'll just show you. Maybe you can imagine already, but let me just run it. Variable is now 1. You can see it executes really fast. But the first time it went through the loop, the variable was 1, and then it went through the loop again, repeated all the code that was in the loop, and now I was equal to 2. The only reason I wrote this program is so you can see how the variable is actually changing during the loop. So you can use that to do lots of different things. Let me go back to edit loops, and I'll show you another visual, another thing you can use loops for. Let's go ahead and say turtle I mean, this is a command from the Turtle API, which I've given you, which it's in the video description. Turtle.select. So now we can give it this number. We can say select I. Select the slot number I. I is going to be equal to 1, then it's going to be equal to 10. So when we execute this code, you're going to see this red is going to go from here to here to here to here, all the way down to slot 10 really fast. So let's actually change this to slot 16. Alright? So it's going to go through all the slots 1 through 16. Let's go ahead and run this code now. Loops. See that? Now, I mean, I'm just giving you all these different examples so you can get some ideas maybe. So edit loops. Now at the end, let me just run this again, but at the end I want to make sure it selects slot 1. Turtle.select 1. Save. Let me just run it again, because I want slot 1 to be selected. Now let's edit loops. Let's make this thing move forward 10 blocks, like I said. I'm sure you can figure this out. It's very easy. Just change this back to 10 and say turtle.forward. Turtle.forward. That's it. So you know this variable is changing from 1 to 10 every time, but you don't need to use that. I mean, in this case, I'm just using it to count 10 times to make sure this code is executed 10 times. It's not actually using the I, it's not reading the I, but you need the I so the program can count a certain number of times. So even if you're not using this variable somewhere in the code, you still need it so you can count a certain number of times. So what this is going to do, it's going to just move forward 10 times. Let's go ahead and save this. Run loops. There it goes. It's going to stop at 10 blocks. Alright? It's a very simple loop. Now, let's do like a simple while loop. Well, first of all, let me show you, just so you understand the concept of the for loop, and this number, in this case, just I'm just using it for a counter. Let me just go ahead and show you. It's going to start at 101 and go to 110, and this is going to behave exactly the same way as it just did. I just wanted to make sure you understand that, because it's starting at 101. Next time it's 102, then 103, 104, all the way up to 110. So that number doesn't really matter unless you're actually like using that number to do something else in the code. But if you're just using to count and repeat a set of code a certain number of times, then it doesn't matter whatever numbers you want to give it. Edit loops. So now let me show you the other type of loop. So that's a for loop. Remember, you can add as many lines of code as you want. Instead of just turtle.forward, you can give it 10 lines of code. So you could say repeat a bunch of code 10 times over and over again. So for example, if you had a tree farm that's just repeating a bunch of code over and over again, every time a tree grows, it's going to repeat a bunch of code and get itself set back up to where it started. That would be a loop. You could do a for loop if you wanted it to just farm 50 trees and then stop, or you can use a while loop if you wanted it to test for certain conditions. For example, while there's room in the turtle's inventory, farm the tree farm, but when it fills up, then stop. So let me show you what a while loop is for, because that's the kind of thing you want a while loop for. So here in this loops program, we're going to make a while loop. First of all, let's make a variable, true or false variable. For loops that I just showed you use numbers to run. A while loop uses a true or false statement. So x is equal to true. Now we can say while x do, just like the for loop, we need to add the word do in there. Then we can put all our code after that, and then we'd have to say end. So the code that we're going to run, we're going to say turtle dot forward. Now this is going to be a little bit more complicated, and I think you guys can handle it. So while x is true, do turtle dot forward, and then it's going to dig the block beneath it. So turtle dot dig down. Now we're going to say, let me just space this out so it's easier to read. Let me change it to daytime also. Now we're going to go back to what we learned last time. We're going to have an if statement in here. We're going to say if turtle dot get item count, you have to have the parentheses, remember, of slot 1 is over 5. Okay, then, and one thing to note, make sure you're keeping track of all the parentheses. Make sure that wherever you start a parentheses, you got to end it. So these parentheses are just for the slot number. The if statement also has a set of parentheses. So if, then you give it the condition to check for, and then you got to end the parentheses. Make sure you always end your parentheses. All right. So right now we're saying if the number of items in slot 1 is over 5, then let me go down a line because I'm out of space. Then x equals false. All right. And then we just say end. So this first end, this end right here, is for the if statement. This end is for the while loop. They use the same keyword. So this first end is just for the if statement. So this if statement basically says if the item count in slot 1 gets over 5, then set x equal to false. Now, if you noticed, this while loop is running based off the x variable. So while x is true, we're going to be doing this code. But as soon as x is equal to false, it's not going to do this code anymore. So what's going to happen is it's going to go through this code over and over again. And every time it goes through this code, this is all the loop code. These 5 lines right here, after the do keyword, so it's going to go forward, then it's going to dig down. So it's going to dig beneath itself. And then it's going to check if this is true, then it's going to, if it is true, then it's going to set x equal to false, otherwise nothing will happen. So it's going to basically be repeating all this code endlessly, potentially. But in this case, as soon as the items in slot 1 reach over 5, then x is going to be set equal to false, and it's going to stop the while loop. Alright, so let's go ahead and save this and run it. And let's see what happens. Alright, so I'm just going to send it off this way. Loops. So here it goes. Alright, so it stopped. Why did it stop? Because this slot got 6 items, which is greater than 5. So if we look through the code, let's imagine this had 5 items. So let's pretend this loop is on the fifth time going through. We have 5 items here because it's dug 5 times. So this if statement, if turtle.getItemCount slot 1, so this basically is going to be equal to 5, this whole statement right here. So if 5 is greater than 5, then x equals false. Well, 5 isn't greater than 5, so let's not do that. Then the next time it digs another block, the sixth time it goes through the loop, it's going to have 6 items in here. Then when it's going to go ahead and go, if turtle.getItemCount is greater than 5, so now it's basically saying if 6 is greater than 5, oh, that's true, then what do? Then x equals false. Alright, x equals false. So now it's going to go back up to the while loop. It's going to say, okay, is x false yet? Alright, hey, it is false. Alright, so let's stop. Let's not do this code anymore. Alright, that's how it goes. That's what a while loop is. Now, check out this shortcut you can do. I mean, I kind of showed you this. This isn't the... I could write the same program in less code, but I gave you the more code version to kind of explain it better. So now I just deleted the variable x. So now, see this if statement? Why don't we just say while turtle dot get item count, oops, get item count slot 1 is greater than 5. So basically we just copied this if statement into the while loop. Now I can just delete this whole if statement. Just delete it all. Alright, so this is going to behave exactly like what we just had. I just did it in less code. So now it's saying while the turtle item count in slot 1 is greater than 5. Oh wait, I got it. That's wrong. I got to switch this around. All right. So this I had to switch that around because now sorry about that. It's saying while the item count is less than 5, do this code, but as soon as this is not true anymore, then it's not going to do it anymore. Does that make sense? So this is I guess I had to kind of switch this operator around because the logic, that's how it works now. So this, because if this isn't true to start, if I had this greater than, then this code would not do anything. Let me just show you. Save, exit. If there's no items in this turtle, if you run loops, it's not going to do anything at all. The turtle's not going to move because this while statement is never true at all. Because turtle.getItemCount, there's 0 right now. So while 0 is greater than 5, do this code. Well, since it's not true, it's just going to skip all of this and go on to whatever's next. So I had to switch this around. While there are less than 5 items in slot 1, do this code. Alright? So it's gonna, let me go ahead and turn this turtle around. So it's gonna get up to 5 and then it's gonna stop. There we go. Alright. Now, that's not the only way you can do while loops. You don't have to use the greater than or less than and stuff. You can also use turtle programs like, or turtle functions, I mean, like, do you remember when I was showing you, well, let me just show you now. In the Lua, interactive Lua prompt, where you can test commands, you can try doing things like turtle.down, so it's going to move down, and it moved down, so it worked, and it returned true. That's important now. Now you can maybe see what that's going to be used for, and I'll show you. Now, what happens if I try to go down again? Well, it's going to say turtle, well, it's going to say false, because it can't go down. Now, we can use those in while loops. So we can say while turtle.down, do certain code. And then as soon as it says it can't go down anymore, then that while loop would stop because this is returning false. So let me just give you an example. Let me go ahead and this isn't exactly what I just briefly explained, but I'm just going to do something. This program I'm going to write now, it's going to say it's going to go forward as far as it can, and as soon as it hits this wall, it's going to turn to the right. Okay? So let's go ahead and just write this code. Edit. I'm going to make a new one. Edit turn. So this program is called turn. So it's going to say while you can go forward, Mr. Turtle, while turtle dot forward, well, that's it. While you can go forward, go forward. So how am I? Hold on. While well, let me just do this differently. I'm gonna do this slightly differently than what I first planned, but it's still gonna work the same way. I'm gonna do a variable. So x is equal to. I'm gonna actually name this something descriptive. So I'm gonna name this variable wall in front, and it's gonna be set equal to false. So this variable is basically gonna represent whether there's a wall directly in front of the turtle or not. Now we're gonna start it out as false because there isn't one in front of the turtle or not. So while, watch this, while not wall in front, you can use the word not to basically reverse the true or false variable. Do. So while there's not a wall in front of the turtle, go ahead and do turtle dot forward. Alright. Now it's going to say, I'm going to have an if statement. So if turtle.detect, so this is going to tell if there's a wall in front of the turtle. So if turtle.detect, then wall in front is going to be set equal to true. Set equal to true. Don't need an else because nothing else needs to happen otherwise. It's already set equal to false. So if turtle can detect a wall right in front of itself, then wall in front is set equal to true. Then we end the if statement, and then we end the while statement. The while loop, I mean. It's a good idea to get into indenting lines depending on their level. Just so you can keep track of which ends go to which keyword, like loops or if statements. So that's just a good practice to get into. Alright, so what's going to happen is this turtle is now going to go forward until it detects a wall in front of itself, and then it's going to stop this while loop. So now it's going to, after this while loop ends, we're going to say turtle.turnRight. And now we're going to just give it a for loop. So we're going to combine what we learned before. So now it's going to be a for. We're just going to have it move forward 3 blocks after it hits a wall. So for I equals, and we'll just go from numbers 1 to 3. We have to say do. Now we just got to say turtle.forward because it already turned right. Do turtle.forward. End. Alright? So let me just go ahead and run this. It's gonna basically, no matter how far it has to go, it'll keep moving infinitely until it hits a wall. As soon as it hits a wall, it'll then turn to the right and move forward 3 blocks. 2 different types of loops there. Let me just go ahead and try this out. Here goes. Alright, so that works. So that's a pretty good demonstration of how to use the 2 different types of loops. There might only be 1 or 2 more videos in this series until you can really feel like you have enough knowledge to write some pretty cool programs. But that's pretty much, I pretty much taught you a lot. I've taught you a lot of stuff. So hopefully it's making sense. Just go ahead and leave me some comments if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to help you guys out. See you next time. Adios. Bye bye.